Hey everybody, I'm out here in one of my offices for the past 6 months and figured I'd come back here to where this journey 6 months ago kind of all started when I made that post about being at my new office to kind of give you guys a little bit of the story about what God's been doing in the Elkins family and specifically in my life and my ministry. I know a lot of you have asked why Northland, why North Orlando, why is the Elkins family headed down there? And I can't go into details in a short video of everything that's God's been doing, but I just thought it would be good for me to share a little bit from my heart what all has been happening and just to tell you guys from myself what God has been up to. And so as many of you know, back in December and January, God made it very clear that we were on the move and he was up to something in the Elkins family. We thought at the time that might require us to leave Jacksonville and Northeast Florida, but we didn't know for sure what God was going to do over the next few months. And so we just began to pray fervently about where God wanted us to be as a family, where he wanted me to be as a pastor and a minister. And then in February, I got a chance to go up to some friends' cabin up in the mountains and just spend some time alone with God for about 3 days with just my Bible and the Lord, nobody else with me, and just ask God, is this... what do you want me to do? I surrendered at the age of 16 to the ministry and to do whatever it is that God wanted me to do. And God, were you allowing things to happen because you had something else that you wanted me to do? Missions or senior pastor work or missions pastor work or campus pastor work. And God just was so gracious to just speak to my heart and give me scripture that just reaffirmed my calling to students and the next generation. And so that began a series of interviews and meetings with churches from all over America about where was God calling the Elkins family, and specifically to be pursuing something with students, something with being a next-gen pastor, something like that. Well, a few weeks later, I got a phone call from one of my friends named Josh Laxton, and he had a year and a half ago become the senior pastor of a church called Northland. And the God story about Josh and Northland is about 13, 14 years ago. I had taken middle school students on a mission trip to Atlanta, Georgia to help a brand new church planter that was revitalizing a church in an Atlanta suburb named Josh Laxton. And we had partnered together, and all these years, for over a decade, I'd been praying for him as he's gone to different places. And God had called him to Northland. And then shortly after he got to Northland, he talked to one of his friends named Derwin Anderson about coming and joining the staff there. Well, Derwin was a church planter 10 plus years ago in Tampa, Florida, and I had taken middle school students to Tampa, Florida to help his church there. So 2 different church plants in 2 different cities. I'd met these pastors that had become friends of mine that I'd been praying for and encouraging for 10 plus years. And now God had brought them both to Northland to pastor there, and they were looking for a pastor to come alongside them and pastor the next generation. And specifically sent me a job description that asked if I would pray about becoming the executive pastor of Next Gen Ministries at Northland Church in North Orlando. And so after a season of weeks of meetings and prayer, just really got convinced that God had been working behind the scenes to prepare the Elkins family to move. Now, most of you that know me know that's a big deal because I've lived in Jacksonville now for nearly 20 years. Next month, I'll celebrate 20 years as a Jacksonville resident. My wife was born and raised here. My kids have been born and raised here. Our parents are here. My parents are here. Her parents are here. And so to move, it was a big deal. And we prayed and asked God just to confirm in all 5 of our hearts that we were supposed to be in Orlando. And after a season of prayer and just seeking the Lord's face, each of us individually just had a peace that Northland is where we're supposed to be. And so, as many of you saw last week, I made the public post that we will be moving down there in August. Be praying for that transition. Be praying that God has just the perfect home for us to live in, neighborhood to be in, schools for our kids to be in. But pray specifically for the ministry of Northland and specifically the churches in North Orlando. God is up to something big in North Orlando, and he's called us to join him there. Jacksonville will always be home. It'll be where our kids were born. It was where I was ordained to ministry. So many of my students that are going to be watching this video, you guys are in Jacksonville. Some of you now are in cities all over the world, and I will always be Reverend Elkins. I will always be Pastor Dan in your life. I will always be available for phone calls and meetings. Anytime you're in Orlando, text me, call me, come by and see me. I'll be back in Jacksonville often to see family and friends. It's only 2 hours away, but I want to ask that you pray for the Elkins family. Pray for the hearts of my kids. Pray for my wife and my family. That God would just knit us to the families in North Orlando, and that God would use us in incredible ways to reach many students and many families for Christ. And we will continue to love and pray for each and every one of you, and just excited to see what God does both here in Jacksonville and Orlando and around the world for the furtherance of his kingdom, to glorify God in everything we all say and do. So thank you for loving us and praying for us for all these years, but especially over these last 6 months. Pray that we will honor and glorify our King in all that we do. We love you guys, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.